Here's this week's My Boat feature.
This week on My Boat, we're going to continue on with our Verado Repower project. Last week we got the motor installed, all of the helm components and the hydraulic steering. This week we're going to move on to the electrical and networking components of the system. Task 1 was to bundle the main 14-pin data harness, accessory power harness, and optional fuel paddle wheel harness together with tape and pull them through the raceway from the helm to the transom. At the helm, I started with the command module harness, first connecting the lever 1 and handle connector into the DTS control cable, then connected the lanyard stop switch and ignition, and finally plugged the harness into the junction box. As messy as it looks, what we have here is the main harness installed here at the helm. And it's connected to the throttle, of course, and the shifter. It's connected to the ignition, to the stop-start lanyard, and it is also connected to this junction box. And what we're going to do now, because we've put in the optional murk monitor, is we're going to put in the harness that's required for that, that's going to connect the murk monitor and other instruments. Lifting the gauges, I plugged the murk monitor harness into the monitor and the first gauge. Being link gauges, the remaining are now interconnected or linked in a row. I also plugged the system harness and DTS harness into the junction box. The last components to be plugged into this were the control module and accessory relay harnesses, the power connector to the junction box, and the full harness was plugged into the 14-pin data harness connection for all instruments and controls leading to the motor. After a final inspection, all of the components plus a bus bar and the original fuse block were mounted on starboard, and the positive and negative power harness leads were connected to the terminal. The harnesses were reconnected and everything was installed in the console. Back at the engine, things are easier. Task 1 was to use a hole saw to cut a hole in the side of the well below the hydraulic hose outlet and install the collar for the Verado's rigging tube. The data cable, fuel paddle wheel harness, and fuel line were then fed through the collar into the well. From the motor, the battery cables and DTS power harnesses were fed through the rigging tube, and in reverse, the data cable and fuel paddle wheel harness were fed through the tube to the motor. So now we're just down to the final steps with the electronics and controls, and of course that's hooking everything up, and it's pretty obvious where all the pieces go, but the instruction manual for the motor is quite good, covers a lot of the information. Inside the cowl, I had to hook up the fuel line, plug in the 14-pin data cable, and fuel paddle wheel harnesses into the vessel's system harness. The last tasks were to connect the accessory power harness to the battery to power items at the helm, and from the motor, the DTS power harness and battery cables were connected to the battery and battery switch. Getting close to the finish, the next task was to borrow a power purge kit from Central Marine to fill and purge the hydraulic steering harness. The last step was to hook up their Mercury Verado service computer and use their tech's expertise to adapt the DTS to the motor. And of course, the Verado started first turn of the key. Well, that's it. We're done with this particular project. Bit of a tough one. I give it 5 wrenches plus, not typical DIY. And it was a long one. It took me a week, 5 days, instead of the 2.5 to 3 for a tech at a dealership like this. Thanks to Central Marine for their support in this project, because you do need Marine support. You need the specialized computers and gear from Mercury to synchronize everything and get it running. But this has been a fun project.